Hello everyone, and welcome to VooPlayer Q&A's weekly webinar call. We're going to get started here in just a minute, but before we do, if you could just confirm that you can hear my voice as well as see my screen, that would be great. Just confirm that in the chat box and then we can get started. All right, we just got one confirmation thus far. All right, now the confirmation started rolling in. So hello, Kyle. Hello, Graham. Thank you, everybody, for joining to this week's Q&A session. My name is Peter, and I am VooPlayer's product manager. We are holding these weekly calls in order to answer any questions which you as users may have, also to provide training on any features or illustrate how you can accomplish your particular use cases, also to gather feedback from you guys as users on how we can keep improving VooPlayer, and also to showcase any new stuff that we've been working on. So with that in mind, the format of the webinar is pretty straightforward. At any time that you have a question, just feel free to drop it in the chat box and we'll just answer them in the order that they come in. If you came prepared with any questions which you would like to have addressed during this call, now would be a good time just to type them out in the chat box. Also worth mentioning is that the webinar replays are available both on our YouTube channel as well as on our Facebook group. And if for whatever reason you're not available to make the webinar throughout the week, just feel free to either just ask a question on the Facebook group or just send us an email at support@vooplayer.com just stating that you would like to have a particular topic discussed during the webinar, and then we can address it during the following week. All right, so I think I covered all of the housekeeping notes. I might have forgot something, but if so, please forgive me. With that in mind, there's just a couple of announcements, well, more refreshers that I would just like to touch base on before we start getting to questions. So the first announcement / refresher that I wanted to touch base on, and I'm sorry that I haven't prepared anything to kind of illustrate this. Promise to do that next week. We just released a new version of VooPlayer today with the major enhancement in it being a significant improvement with regards to the mobile handling of VooPlayer and display of the video controls and the video functionality, such as entering in full screen and rotating phones, etc., etc. So a lot of the behaviors and display issues which VooPlayer was having with regards to the handheld devices, primarily iPhones, have now been addressed, and a lot of edge cases we're not really able to thoroughly test or even come up with the scenarios for testing them. So if you at any time throughout your usage of VooPlayer were experiencing issues with it playing on mobile devices, now would be a good time to kind of retest that. We are reaching out to all customers who reported issues with mobile performance or mobile display or mobile functionality of the player, and are kind of asking them to retest that now. Throughout the last month, we've been focusing a lot on mobile improvements, and today a lot of those were released, and we're kind of in the process of verifying those fixes and ensuring that everything kind of meets the standards and the expectations which we wanted to cover. All right, so that's the first thing, mobile enhancements. The second thing is, again, just to touch base on this. So last month, not last month, 3 weeks ago or so, we released the beta performance optimization. version of the embed code. So that is available over here where you can turn it on. And what that does is it changes the way in which your player is loading. So impacting the page load times of the of your pages on which you have WooPlayer embedded, so that WooPlayer just loads instantly. So if you are or have been experiencing any page load time issues or performance issues on your pages, and you believe WooPlayer can be at fault there, it's not been ideal thus far, but if you do turn on this beta performance optimizations at that time, that will I think significantly give you a better impact on that page load time. One more thing that I wanted to touch base on, and I'll probably do the last time because I've been talking about it for a while, is that we also released the new overlays feature with pre-made templates, which allows you to very quickly generate professional looking overlays and add interactions to your video and call outs and interactive elements and imagery, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something that we're also excited about, but by this time, I think everybody's kind of familiar with it, so I'm not going to dwell on that too much. All right. Cool. Those are some of the things that I wanted to touch base on. So mobile improvements, performance beta optimization. On beta optimization, worth mentioning is that at one point, pretty soon, we're going to start having this as toggled on by default. So keep that in mind. That's at some point, I'll make sure to make an announcement out of this, but at some point this is going to become on by default so that we're able to test it even more thoroughly. Thus far, we've been getting some pretty positive feedback, and we're able to cover a lot of the stuff that we haven't thought about, and we were able to address all of those issues. So we're kind of ready to kind of turn this on by default, allowing you to kind of opt out of it rather than opt into it. And in the future, once we kind of make sure that everything is fully as expected at that time, that's just going to be the default option without the ability to turn it off. So keep that in mind sometime soon, and I'll make sure to make an announcement. The beta performance optimizations will start being toggled on by default. What else did I want to mention? I just want to thank everybody who have contributed feedback with regards to the new overlays. So we've been getting some pretty good feedback with regards to some of the new templates which we can integrate and how those can add value. So I just want to thank everybody who have submitted their ideas for new templates for overlays. There's some really good ideas there, and we're going to be sure to start implementing those at some point in the future, and we'll as we implement the new templates which you guys have submitted as ideas, we'll also announce that through the appropriate channels. All right, so enough out of me. So let's start getting to questions which you have. So let's see. Shade is saying, for upcoming frames, can we have a speech bubble frame as the player skin image sent to the Facebook group, but comment hasn't been approved yet? So the upcoming skins, so that's a reference to the ability to, let me just find where all of that is, unsaved changes. I want to save those. So I believe that's a reference to, let me just find it. So that's the player skins, iPhones and laptops, theater, speech bubbles, etc. So the idea behind this is to give you some sort of a framing option for the video player, which would allow you to easily customize kind of not only the skin of the player, but kind of the environment in which that player is housed. So for example, you would be able to have a phone on your web page as sort of the background image of the player, whereas the player would be kind of positioned as the screen of that. So thus far, this hasn't received a lot of feedback from users as something that will be really valuable, which is why we haven't started dedicating too much efforts into that. But the idea is really to kind of go a step further beyond just providing you with a player for your pages, but rather also kind of start to give you some ability around styling that player and how you can do that. Worth mentioning is that we did have a couple of requests. Some people wanted to have the video in a picture frame, like a painting frame, and we were able to accomplish that rather easily with them. So accomplishing this without any additional options from VooPlayer is not that difficult. I'll be sure to find that reference somewhere. Shade and Dean is plus wanting this discussion, so that's great. So I'll be sure to find where the solution which we implemented for that person who requested a picture frame is, and then at that point we can also try to do the same with the speech bubble as well, and try to figure out how that would work. One thing that I'm kind of seeing an issue with Shade is kind of how would the controls fit within the chat bubble. So the chat bubble will have to be kind of rectangularly shaped, I guess. Yeah, you know what, Shade? If you can just do a quick mock-up of how you imagine that to work. So just grab any video player and just put it in some chat box and just email it over to support@vooplayer.com and just mention that it's for feedback for me, and then I'll initiate a conversation from that, referencing that use case where we were able to cover a video player with a picture frame, and I'm pretty positive that we can come up with a similar solution. So I don't believe there's need at this point for a VooPlayer to kind of develop this feature built in app. At this point, I think there's a nice solution that we can come up sort of in the background, and if the feedback keeps rolling then which I'll note the feedback both from Dean and from Shade on this. But as feedback continues rolling in, then we're going to start considering making this as a feature within the application. All right, cool. Lewis is saying, I have been testing speed performance with a short 8-second video, uploading it directly to VooPlayer via YouTube, Google Drive, and Facebook. I put the results on the same page and am curious if it's just my own internet speed because I cannot see any difference between the first three. And Lewis was kind enough just to send over an image. Just let me, I don't know how to kind of move this over here. Give me a second just to put it outside of this. So, Lewis, first things first. So, you're never gonna successfully be able to test variations of different setups on the same page. So Lewis, if you want to kind of test the differences between how something is performing on YouTube, how something is performing when it's uploaded to VooPlayer, how something is performing when it's on Google Drive, etc., you kind of need to do that on different pages. So you need an individual page for each of those environments where you're uploading videos. The reason for that is if you have all three on the same page, then you're not able you're losing validity of the test there, because then all three have to load and each one is impacting the other one, and then you have to worry about load orders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the best way to kind of set this test up, and this is something that I'm really interested in how this would go, because this would be really valuable information, and it's something that we've been planning to do for a long time. We were just not able to kind of dedicate this in order to get some sort of benchmarking around this. But I believe it's a good test, and I think, let me just take a look at the video that you're doing. So it's a short, nice video, and I think that will be a perfect video to test with. So that's good. So what I would do is I would just have three different pages. So I would have the YouTube upload page, the VooPlayer uploaded page, the Google Drive uploaded page next to each other, and then I guess what you're really trying to test for is is it the streaming performance, or is it the what do you call it, the page load times? If you're testing the page load times, I think the best way to kind of do that would be, so you can just open up the developer console if you're in Chrome, and you can do that on by hitting F12, and then you can kind of monitor the entire network. So here, unfortunately, we're going to have all three, but that's going to give you direct insight with regards to what's going on in the page. And currently, you kind of have 3 players loading, so that's what's kind of setting it off. But then you can measure only the first one, and then the second one, and the third one, and then you can start seeing the results of the individual requests and the total load time, the finish time, the content time, etc., etc. However, if you're interested in testing kind of the bandwidth performance, I would recommend doing the same. However, you are highly unlikely to see any differences with with a short video such as this, unless you kind of manipulate the test a little bit. So what you are kind of able to do here, and let me just see if I can remember how to do this. So I would need to, so in the developer console, you have the ability to kind of simulate slower connection speeds. So you can open up the DevTools over here, and then you can come up over here and say, hey, I want, and you can customize this and say, I want the browser to simulate loading with a slow connection or with a fast connection, or you can customize your own connections. And then when you refresh the page, then the browser will kind of behave as it's loading via a rather slow connection. So if you have that set up and then you simulate a play, that way I think you're going to be able to more effectively test the bandwidth connection and the bandwidth speed. Either way, I just believe starting off with the page with 3 videos on the same page, that's just not right. That just makes the test invalid from the get-go. So the best thing to do is have 2 or 3 different pages for each environment. And then if you want to test bandwidth, I would recommend simulating a slower connection. Whereas if you want to test kind of the page load order, then you can just look at the requests. And there's a lot of tools online, such as the Pingdom tools, the page speed report, etc., to which you can send send the individual URLs to, and then you can measure their performance. I'm really curious about these results that you're going to get out of this. So please keep us updated on how that's going and what kind of results you're getting. Would really love to see that. Just going to follow up with Lewis here before I get to Kyle here. Would you recommend, based on this, just 1 video per page? Yes, definitely. Just 1 video per page is the most valid test that you can do. All right, so Kyle is saying, several weeks ago you mentioned an audio version or podcast player version. Any update? I believe it was a VooPlayer version for audio files. We kind of have that already completed, and it's kind of sitting in the background, not doing anything, as we haven't released it to the public. We kind of need to figure out a way how to roll this out as some sort of a beta, because it's really a lot different. I mean, it does not necessarily seem like audio is that much of a different ball game than video is, but believe you me, it is completely different when it comes to the conversion processes and how you handle everything. So we just kind of need to figure out a way to set it up as a beta. I'll note your feedback, and if you want to kind of continue this conversation with regards to perhaps being a beta tester on the audio only feature, just reach out to us at support@VooPlayer.com and just say, hey, Peter reached out and wanted me to let you know that I want to be a beta tester for the audio only player, and that way we can kind of go from there. We've been testing a lot of different things with this, and as you mentioned, I don't think it's been several weeks ago. It's been several months ago. Last time I remember us working on this, we've enabled kind of audio, so the upload of MP3 files kind of ends up in the player, and then you're able to kind of add audio visualizations to this. We need to kind of dig this up because it's sitting somewhere on the backlog on a separate branch. So we'll dig it up and start doing some work around making this available as some sort of a beta. The only trouble that I'm seeing with this is that kind of the files which are required for the audio to be supported as a standalone, and the not to mention the visualization of the audio during playback are kind of hefty, and they would make the entire player a little bit larger. So that's kind of the part that's missing with regards to figuring out how to make this only available to some people. But yeah, again, we haven't come up with final plan on the rollout of that or the schedule of that. So as with anything else, keeping a conversation alive on this is really what helps get this going. So we'll know if you remain persistent on this, we'll know that it's important. So my recommendation to everybody who's kind of seeing value in something is keep pestering me about it. So not only on webinar, but if you initiate, I have 10 or 20 conversations right now which are going on with customers that have lasted for over a month, and it's just back and forth, kind of trying to dig in a little bit deeper in the use case. So it might be really easy for us just to push out audio only support, but without full understanding of how you want to leverage it. Hey, I want to leverage it as a podcast. All right, does that podcast is it going to be some sort of a serial podcast where you can have different episodes, and how that's going to fit within the player, and what's kind of the use case there? Do you want to kind of have some call outs in the podcast, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So really kind of getting the conversation going, it helps us better understand that and better prioritize that. So please just reach out to me at support@vuplayer.com, and we can start that conversation. Phoebe is also welcoming the podcast idea, the audio only idea. Pat Flynn has a very cool audio player that I can send to you to review. That would be really appreciated. Lewis is saying, I missed something. Let me see. Would you recommend, based on this, just one video per page? Any way of being able to use the download option to download directly from my web page rather than being linked to the VuPlayer watch page? You're being linked to the VuPlayer watch page. That's weird. You should. I remember this conversation, Lewis. So the ability to download directly from the web page versus being linked to. So I must have misunderstood you originally, because I understood you as you were being linked to the MP4 source file and not the VuPlayer watch page. If you're being linked to the VuPlayer watch page, that's just weird. So let me just, I don't know if I have a video which can be downloaded and it's not secured. I think this one could be right for this. Let me just make sure that's, yeah, I know you submitted it to the ideas board. I've seen it, but you definitely shouldn't be linked over to the watch page. You should be linked back to the just to the MP4 file. So let me just enable download here. All right, save. I don't think it's the watch page. So this is the watch page and how it looks like for a video. So and you kind of get the same thing when the video is embedded. It's just that you don't see the top part and the bottom part. So the download link should I believe, just go directly to the MP4 file. Yeah, so this is just the MP4 file directly. And kind of the reason for why this is set, and this is where the file lives, why it's sending you over to the MP4 file, is because we kind of need to make a decision. So when we have a file which we want to use in the video source, we can treat that file, and this kind of goes into the metadata of the file itself, what kind of a content type is. We could make the content type of that as an application, and if you do that, then that's going to treat the file as a downloadable item. However, our content type setting on the file is set as a video file, meaning that it streams the video file rather than downloads it. So just with regards to kind of the download behavior of videos, this is not that unusual. The same thing kind of you get for downloading images or anything like that is really you kind of get to the source of that, and all you can do is basically, I mean, maybe the only negative thing I think, and I don't know if it behaves like this, is I don't know if it opens up in the new tab or not, but if it doesn't open up in the new tab and it just sends over here, you basically have that file. You can just save it. I just hit Control S just to save that, so you can just save it directly to your computer from that. It's not linking to a VooPlayer page. And as I mentioned, it's not something that's really easy to do because we kind of need to make a decision with regards to if we're going to treat it as a downloadable file, and if we're going to treat it as a downloadable file, then it's not going to be able to be played in VooPlayer. Whereas if we make it as a VooPlayer as a video file, then when you want to download it, it's just going to open up as its source and start streaming. So it's not that easy of a decision. We could implement for some sort of a solution where upon request we duplicate the file and make it available as a download, but then that's going to start overloading storage, etc. So we kind of need to kind of think this through before we reach a conclusion on this. Again, I highly encourage. Well, I actually don't, because I need to follow up on that on you. You're that idea on that submission on the ideas board is currently kind of the only thing that's remaining that's not categorized with something, because I honestly don't know what to do with that, and I see it every time I check the ideas board. So it is a constant reminder on me. So I'll follow up on that with you and kind of get the conversation going around this. I would really love to hear why this is so important to you, and then we can go from there to figure out some sort of a solution. I'm sure that we'll be able to find some workaround around this. All right, so Kyle is saying the watch page needs a makeover. Sent you an idea to use the overlay setup to customize the watch page. Did you get a chance to review overlay setup to customize the watch page? I've seen, we've got a few feedback points on the watch page, and even some mock-up drafts of how that can be improved. I don't know if I remember a particular idea with regards to the overlay setup. Oh, actually I do. So this was an idea that would allow you to use the overlay elements anywhere on the watch page. I honestly don't see that happening. Because at that point we're getting to the customization of web pages rather than the video file. So basically, what we want to do is stay within this little rectangle and not go anywhere outside of it. So if you have some suggestions with regards to kind of this design and the layout of the watch page, that's something that we can discuss. But as soon as we get to kind of the interactivity and the overlays and the pop-ups on the page itself outside of the video, that's just something that we don't want to touch, because that just opens up a lot of possibilities, and we're not necessarily in kind of the web page customization business. We're in video customization business. So if however you see additional value in kind of having some sort of pop-ups, I don't know, a chat box or whatever, some sort of pop-ups over the video, we can definitely discuss some ways in which you can custom integrate third-party tools that you are using, like drip campaigns or something like that, within the watch page. So that's definitely something that we would be willing to discuss, and that's what makes sense to me for covering those kinds of use cases. Again, I'll note this so we can talk more about it in the future. TB saying this download option is just not cool for sub accounts, as it full of WooPlayer references in the URL. Yep. Duly noted, Phoebe. Something more for us to kind of hide from sub accounts and white label it. Lewis is saying, I think most viewers would expect to be able to download directly if they click a download icon, not trying to be awkward. No, not awkward at all. I just don't see it as that big of an issue. And I want to kind of talk through it a little bit in order to understand it a little bit better. So I'll reach out to you personally so we can kind of discuss this thoroughly. TB is saying, are we still working on the separate storage for sub accounts? Yep, we are. We are actually working on that as we speak. So we're working on a way which would allow master accounts to purchase separate subscriptions for sub accounts. So previously, I think at what point in the past there was an option for the master account to allocate some of its storage space to the sub accounts, and that just opened a world of trouble for us with regards to some unforeseen scenarios. Well, what happens when we cancel the sub account? Then we have to reallocate that storage to the master account. What if the payment is denied and the sub account has already used up that storage, and it was just a nightmare. So basically, the way that we want to kind of handle that is allow the master account to purchase individual subscriptions for extension. Can you guys hear me? I think I lost audio and video there for a second. I think I'm back now. Can you guys hear me? Yep. All right, I'm back. That was a very quick glitch for some reason. All right, so just back to it. Only see the cog icon for WooPlayer uploads. How come not seen on others? Secondly, where have I gone wrong with the Facebook upload? Not sure what reference to the Facebook upload is. You're probably referring to using a Facebook link for the uploading the file. Sorry, not uploading the file, but creating a video via a Facebook link. I don't know where you went wrong. I would need to kind of dive deep into that. So if you feel there's an issue with creating a video via the Facebook link, then just open up a new issue out of that, and we can discuss that. And with regards to how come the resolutions are only available for WooPlayer uploads, well, I think that kind of answers itself, because for WooPlayer uploads, we're able to kind of access all of the different resolutions because we make them and we have references to those resolutions, whereas when we are using a linked version of an externally hosted file, so for example, if we link to Vimeo or if we link to Facebook, we are able to extract an MP4 file via that URL, the video source file, but we only get one source out of that, and we usually try to optimize for getting the best possible source. And once we do that, and sometimes we don't even have that, sometimes that URL which you're sharing, for example, with YouTube, when you get that URL which is in the address bar and you put it into WooPlayer, and we kind of try to get the source of that file, what YouTube is going to do, YouTube is going to detect our connection and just serve us with a video resolution of its choosing, which think it's the most appropriate for us, and we're kind of just stuck with that. We can't extract any other resolutions or anything like that. So when you're using externally loaded files, there's no way for us to get individual resolutions because we kind of just get one source out of that and apply it. Whereas, of course, when you upload to VooPlayer, we are the ones generating those additional resolutions. So, of course, we know where they are and we can offer them. So hopefully that answers that question. All right, last question. I'll need to make a hard stop. I have other obligations which I need to get to, and we kind of overstep the time limit here. So I stand to be corrected. I think the performance optimization is the basic need that needs to be available for either enterprise or for sub-account. When you launched it, it was available for sub-accounts, but it had a VooPlayer reference. So after I reported the Voo reference, then it was removed instead of being fixed. I believe that has been fixed with regards to the VooPlayer reference. I don't think we, first when we developed this beta performance optimization, we focused only on VooPlayer first rather than on the sub-account branded video player, as we're calling it, rather than VooPlayers to avoid any branding. So I think that's completed, and we'll re-enable the beta performance for sub-accounts as well. So no worries about that. But thank you for bringing that to my attention, because I think we enabled it but forgot. We fixed the support for beta performance via the video player rather than VooPlayer, but have just forgotten to re-enable that in the sub accounts. Yep, makes sense. We're on it, so we can enable that quickly in the following release. No worries there. Just thank you for bringing that to our attention. All right, need to wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for joining this week. This has been a rather extensive and productive discussion. Really pleased to see that you guys are in a good mood for discussing VooPlayer. Hopefully you will be also next week when we continue to discuss and improve VooPlayer. So thank you everybody for joining this week, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Okay, bye.